In a town called Eldoria, Calum hides behind an ancient oak tree in Lumen Square. He feels like a ghost, watching the joyful people around him. Deep inside, he longs for connection and remembers the warmth of his childhood, which vanished when his parents left because of his strange gift to control time. Calum faces a tough choice. Should he use his power to change a small moment and seek love, or will he stay hidden in the shadows? In the heart of Lumen Square, the sun cast a warm glow on the townsfolk bustling about their daily lives. Laughter and chatter filled the air, creating a vibrant tapestry of sound and movement. Yet, hidden behind the gnarled trunk of an ancient oak tree, Calum felt like a mere specter in this lively scene. He watched the people with a mixture of longing and sorrow, as if he were a ghost who could only observe but never partake. The vivid colors of the marketplace, bright fruits piled high, the scent of fresh bread wafting through the air, served as a stark contrast to the grayness that lingered in Calum's heart. He remembered the warmth of childhood, the days spent running through the fields, laughter echoing in his ears. Those moments, however, were overshadowed by the weight of his gift, a power that had driven a wedge between him and his parents, leading to their abandonment. He could manipulate time, but in doing so, he lost the very connections he craved. As he watched a mother lift her child onto her shoulders, a pang of envy shot through him. Would he ever know such love? Would anyone ever see him? Truly see him? These questions haunted him, circling like vultures waiting for a moment of weakness. Calum's fingers twitched with the urge to reach out, to alter a moment, to be noticed, to feel the warmth of belonging once more. He closed his eyes, wrestling with the temptation. What if he could just change one small moment? Perhaps he could make someone smile at him, acknowledge his existence. A sudden gust of wind rustled the leaves above, rattling his thoughts. No, he whispered to himself. I can't. It's not right. But the desire to be seen pulsed through him, a relentless tide that threatened to sweep him away. Hey you, a voice called from the square, jolting Calum from his reverie. His heart raced as he turned slightly, but it was only a child, pointing at a butterfly dancing nearby. The innocence in the child's eyes stirred something deep within him, a flicker of hope. But hope was quickly drowned by the reality of his solitude. No one called out to him. No one sought his presence. He looked back to the scene unfolding before him. A group of friends shared stories, their laughter ringing like music. He could almost hear the words, but they were muffled, like whispers through a thick wall. A part of him wanted to join, to step out from behind the tree and into their world. But the weight of his power, of the burden it carried, held him back. What if he stepped into the light? What if he dared to break the barrier he had built around himself? The thought sent a shiver down his spine. Would they welcome him, or would they shun him for the darkness he carried? Calum! A familiar voice broke through his thoughts. It was Aaron, a childhood friend who had drifted away as the years passed. Why do you always hide? Come join us. He hesitated, his heart pounding. The invitation hung in the air, heavy with possibility. Could he take that step? Could he allow himself to be vulnerable? But the moment passed, and Calum remained rooted to the spot. He smiled weakly at Aaron, shaking his head. I'm fine here, he called back, his voice barely above a whisper. As Aaron turned to join the others, a sense of despair washed over him. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the square, Calum's thoughts spiraled. He felt as if he were caught in an endless loop, watching life unfold without ever being part of it. The question lingered in his mind, echoing like a distant bell. Would he remain in the shadows, forever a silent witness? Or would he dare to step into the light? With a deep breath, he pressed his back against the rough bark of the oak tree, feeling its strength seep into him. For a fleeting moment, he considered the possibility of change. But for now, he remained hidden, a ghost among the living, trapped in the echo of his own silence. As Calum stood behind the ancient oak tree, memories flooded his mind. He recalled the day he first discovered his gift. It was a sunny afternoon, and he had been playing alone in the garden. The world felt vast and full of possibilities, and he had stumbled upon a moment that changed everything. "Look, Mom, I can make the flowers bloom," he had shouted, laughing as he waved his hands. In that instant, the flowers around him burst into vibrant colors. His mother had watched, her eyes wide with wonder. "Calum, that's amazing. You have a special gift." But as time passed, the joy of his ability turned into a heavy weight. Calum's heart sank as he remembered how his parents' faces changed when they realized the power he held. Their excitement faded, replaced by fear. They worried about what he could do, and soon they drifted away, leaving him alone with his gift. The burden of time pressed down on Calum as he stood in Lumen Square. He felt trapped between what he could do and the loneliness that followed. He often thought of using his power to change the past, to rewrite his story, but he hesitated. What would it cost him? One day, while lost in thought, he saw a little boy chasing a butterfly near the fountain. The sun glinted off the water, and laughter filled the air. Calum watched the boy with a mix of longing and dread. Suddenly, the child stumbled and fell towards the edge of the fountain. The moment felt slow, as if time had paused. "No!" Calum shouted, instinctively reaching out. With a wave of his hand, he rewound the moment, pulling the boy back to safety. The child blinked, confused but unharmed. "Did you see that?" the boy exclaimed, looking around for answers. "I almost fell." Calum felt a rush of relief, but also a twinge of guilt. He had saved the boy, but what about the ripples his action would create? He had only delayed the fall, not erased the consequences. That evening, he saw the boy's family, their faces twisted in worry. The mother held her son tightly, whispering soothing words while her eyes darted around, searching for a reason for his sudden fear. "What if something happens to him again?" she said, her voice trembling. "I can't lose him." Calum's heart ached. He had changed a moment, but in doing so, he had altered the boy's family's peace. The weight of guilt began to settle in his chest. He realized that every time he used his power, he changed more than just the immediate moment. He changed lives. A dark thought crept into his mind. What if he could change even bigger things? What if he could prevent disasters before they happened? But the memory of his parents' fearful faces haunted him. He did not want to be a source of pain for others. As he paced back to his hiding spot, a whisper of trouble reached his ears. "Have you heard? A storm is coming. They say it will hit Lumen Square hard," a woman said to her friend as they passed by. Calum froze, feeling a chill run down his spine. He loved Lumen Square. It was a place of joy and laughter. The thought of destruction sent shivers through him. "If that storm hits, it could destroy everything," the friend replied, worry etched on her face. Calum's heart raced. This was the moment he had been waiting for, the chance to change something significant. But as he stood there, he felt torn. If he intervened, what would it cost him? Would he be risking even more pain for the people he cared about? "Do I dare?" he whispered to himself, the weight of the decision heavy in the air. He knew he had to choose between staying hidden or stepping into the light to protect those he loved. The burden of time weighed on him, and he felt the echoes of his past pressing in. Would he be brave enough to face the storm? Calum stood at the edge of Lumen Square, hidden under the broad branches of the ancient oak. The townsfolk bustled about, their laughter and chatter blending into a comforting hum. Yet, he felt like a shadow, unseen and untouched by the warmth of their lives. Just as he was about to slip into his familiar isolation, something unexpected caught his eye. A girl, no older than 12, stood at the center of the square. Her name was Lyra, and she had a spark of courage that seemed to light up the dullest of days. With her fiery red hair and a determined look in her eyes, she was not afraid to speak her mind. Calum watched as she rallied a group of children around her, urging them to join her in a game. "Come on, we can make our own rules," Lyra called out, her voice ringing clear above the crowd. The children laughed and ran to join her, their faces bright with excitement. Calum felt a pull toward her, a strange connection that made his heart race. It was as if she could sense his presence, even though they had never met. Summoning his courage, Calum stepped out from behind the tree. As he approached, Lyra turned, her gaze piercing through the crowd. "Who are you?" she asked, tilting her head slightly, as if trying to read his thoughts. I'm Calum," he stammered, feeling suddenly vulnerable. "I don't usually come here." "Why not?" she questioned, crossing her arms defiantly. "This place is amazing. You should be a part of it." Calum hesitated, his instinct to retreat battling with the urge to connect. I feel like I don't belong." Lyra's expression softened. "You do belong. Everyone has a place here. You just have to find it." Her words struck a chord within him. Calum had always felt like an outsider, haunted by the weight of his powers and the fear of being discovered. But Lyra's confidence was infectious. He found himself smiling, despite his worries. "What do you love most about Lumen Square?" he asked, eager to keep the conversation going. Lyra's eyes sparkled. "I love how it brings people together. Look around you. There are so many stories here, and I want to be part of them." As they spoke, Calum felt the walls he had built around himself begin to crack. Lyra's passion for life was like a light pushing through the darkness he had grown used to. "You seem so brave," he admitted. "I wish I could be like you." "Bravery isn't about not being scared," Lyra replied with a grin. "It's about doing what you believe in, even when you are. You can be brave too, Calum. I can help you." Her words ignited a flicker of hope in his heart. Perhaps he could find a way to use his powers for something good, something that mattered. "What if I told you I could help people?" he asked, testing the waters. "Help people? Really?" Lyra's eyes widened with curiosity. "How?" Calum took a deep breath. "I can change moments in time. I can save people from accidents or danger. But it's hard. It comes with a cost." Lyra considered this for a moment. "Then let's use it. We can make sure everyone is safe in Lumen Square. We can protect them together." The idea thrilled Calum and terrified him at the same time. "But what if it goes wrong? What if I hurt someone?" "Every time we try something new, there's a risk," Lyra answered, her voice steady. "But think of all the good we can do. You have a gift, Calum. Don't hide it away." Her words resonated deeply within him. For the first time, he felt seen and understood. The connection he sensed with Lyra was becoming stronger, pushing him toward a decision he had long avoided. Maybe he could step out of the shadows and use his power for the greater good. "All right," he said, a newfound determination in his voice. "Let's do this together. I want to help." Lyra beamed at him, her enthusiasm infectious. "Yes, together, we can make a difference." As they stood side by side, Calum felt a warmth in his chest, a sense of belonging he had long yearned for. For the first time in a long time, he dared to hope. Together, they would confront the impending destruction and fight for the future of Lumen Square. As the day of the disaster drew closer, a heavy weight settled over Lumen Square. Calum stood at the edge of the bustling marketplace, his heart racing as he felt the tension in the air. He looked around at the townsfolk, blissfully unaware of the danger that loomed. Lyra's laughter rang out nearby, a sound that brought warmth to his heart. But even that could not drown out the dread he felt. "I can't just stand by," he murmured to himself, clenching his fists. He had the power to change things, to save them all, but at what cost? The memory of past choices echoed in his mind, reminding him of the pain they had caused. Just then, Lyra approached, her eyes sparkling with determination. "Calum, are you ready for the festival? It will be amazing." He forced a smile, but it felt heavy on his lips. "Yeah, sure, the festival." The words tasted bitter, knowing that it might be their last celebration. Lyra studied him closely, sensing the storm brewing beneath his calm exterior. "What's wrong? You seem distant." Calum hesitated, the weight of his decision pressing down harder. "I'm just thinking about the disaster. It's coming, Lyra. I can feel it." Her expression shifted to one of concern. "What do you mean? What are you planning to do?" He took a deep breath, the air thick with the scent of roasted nuts and flowers. "If I use my powers, I could save the town. But it might cost me everything." Lyra shook her head, her voice firm. "You can't think like that. You have to believe that you can make a difference without losing yourself. We need you." But Calum knew better. Each time he used his abilities, he felt a part of him slip away. The thought of sacrificing himself for others was a heavy burden, one that filled him with both fear and a strange sense of duty. "What if I have to lose my essence to save everyone?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Lyra stepped closer, her eyes fierce with conviction. "You are more than your powers, Calum. You are a person who cares. That's what matters most." He wanted to believe her, to hold on to that hope, but the reality loomed like a dark cloud. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the square, Calum felt the urgency grow. The day of the festival arrived, and laughter filled Lumen Square. Colorful banners fluttered in the breeze, and the townsfolk celebrated, blissfully unaware of the impending doom. Calum watched from a distance, his heart heavy. Suddenly, the ground trembled beneath him. Panic erupted as the disaster struck, shaking the very foundation of the square. People screamed, and chaos erupted. Calum felt the pull of his powers, the familiar rush coursing through him, urging him to act. "Lyra!" he shouted above the noise, searching for her through the throng of frightened faces. "We need to get everyone to safety." "I'm here," she called back, her voice steady even in the turmoil. "What do we do?" Calum's heart raced as he made a choice. "I have to use my powers to stop this. Stay close to me." As he focused, he felt the energy building inside him. He could see the threads of time weaving together, and with a deep breath, he reached out. The air shimmered as he began to manipulate the moment, but with each wave of his hand, he felt a piece of himself fade away, like sand slipping through his fingers. "Calum, don't!" Lyra cried out, her eyes wide with fear. "You don't have to do this!" But it was too late. The power surged, and the square transformed around him. The chaos was replaced by a moment of stillness. He could feel the warmth of life returning, but the cost weighed heavily on his heart. As the last remnants of his energy dissipated, Calum collapsed to his knees, breathless. The square was safe, but he felt a void inside him, a hollow space where his essence once thrived. Lyra rushed to his side, her face a mix of relief and horror. "You did it! You saved them!" He looked at her, tears in his eyes. "But at what cost, Lyra? I don't know who I am anymore." In that moment, as the cheers of the townsfolk echoed around them, Calum understood the depth of his sacrifice. He had saved Lumen Square, but a significant part of himself was forever lost. The choice he made was a heavy one that would change everything. In the days following the disaster, Lumen Square began to show signs of healing. The townsfolk worked together, clearing debris and planting new flowers. Calum watched from a distance, feeling a hollow ache in his chest. He had saved them, yet he felt more alone than ever. The remnants of his sacrifice echoed in his mind, a constant reminder of what had been lost. As he leaned against the rough bark of a tree, Lyra approached him, her bright eyes filled with concern. "Calum, you should be helping. We need you," she urged, her voice steady despite the chaos around them. "I don't know if I can. he replied, his gaze fixed on the ground. I'm not the same. I feel faded, like I'm not really here. Lyra stepped closer, her presence warm and reassuring. You are here. You saved us all. You need to see that. She paused, searching his face. Let's work on the square together. It will help you feel connected again. Calum hesitated but nodded slowly. Okay, I'll try. As they began to gather fallen branches and clear away the rubble, Calum felt a flicker of purpose. With every piece they removed, a sense of belonging started to stir within him. Lyra's laughter rang out as she playfully tossed a twig at him. You need to lighten up. We're rebuilding our home, not just cleaning. He chuckled softly, a sound that felt foreign but welcomed. I guess I could use a bit of joy right now. Good. Joy is exactly what we need, Lyra said, her smile brightening the dullness of the square. You've done so much for us, Calum. We need your strength now more than ever. Hours passed, and as they worked side by side, Calum felt himself opening up. He shared stories of his past, tales of loneliness and longing. I used to think that being alone was safer, he confessed. But now I see that it only brings pain. Lyra nodded, her expression serious. We all have moments of pain. It's what connects us. You're not alone in this, Calum. We've all lost something. He looked into her eyes, seeing the depth of understanding there. I wish I could feel whole again. I wish I could go back to how things were before. But you can't, Lyra said gently. What you can do is find a new way to be. You are not just a shadow anymore. You are part of this community. As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow over the square, Calum felt the weight of his sacrifice shifting. He might never regain everything he had lost, but perhaps he could forge something new. Together with Lyra and the townspeople, they could rebuild not just the physical space, but the bonds that had been strained. Look at what we're creating, Lyra said, gesturing to the small crowds gathering. Everyone is coming together. They're grateful for you, Calum. You've given them hope. He gazed at the faces around him, smiles forming where there had once been sorrow. I never thought my actions could lead to this. You did this, Calum. You saved lives, and now we're all saving this place together. Lyra smiled brightly, her spirit infectious. Let's keep going. Let's show everyone that even the hardest times can lead to something beautiful. With renewed determination, Calum joined in the laughter and work as they continued to restore Lumen Square. Each act of kindness, each shared moment, pulled him closer to the community he longed for. The echoes of his sacrifice began to transform, weaving into the fabric of their lives. As night fell, Calum stood back, taking in the sight of the square, now full of life and laughter. He realized that though he felt different, he was not invisible. He was part of something much bigger than himself, and for the first time in a long while, he felt the warmth of connection surrounding him. Thank you, Lyra, he said softly, gratitude swelling in his heart. You've helped me see what matters. Always, Calum. We're in this together, she replied, her hand resting on his shoulder. As they looked out over the square, Calum felt a spark of hope igniting within him. The echoes of consequence were no longer just shadows of his past. They were the beginnings of a new journey, one filled with connection, purpose, and the promise of a brighter tomorrow. Calum stood at the edge of Lumen Square, watching the sun rise over the town. The warm light spilled across the cobblestones, casting long shadows that danced with the morning breeze. He felt a sense of peace wash over him, a stark contrast to the chaos that had engulfed the square just days before. Now, the air was filled with laughter, and the sounds of children playing echoed in his ears, reminding him of the innocence he once craved. He turned to Lyra, who was busy organizing a gathering near the fountain. Her energy was infectious, and her spirit seemed to light up the space around them. Calum, she called out, waving her arms excitedly. Come help me with the decorations. We need to make this place shine for everyone. With a gentle smile, Calum moved closer. What do you have in mind? He asked, eager to contribute, even if he still felt like a shadow among the vibrant townsfolk. Lyra grinned, her eyes sparkling. We're celebrating you. Your bravery saved us all. We need to honor that. She paused, her expression softening. You know, you don't have to be seen to be felt. Your actions speak louder than any words. Calum's heart swelled at her words, but he couldn't shake the feeling of being invisible. But I'm not really here, Lyra. I gave up so much to save everyone. Sometimes I wonder if they even notice my sacrifice. Lyra stepped closer, her voice firm yet gentle. They notice, Calum. They see the light you brought back to Lumen Square. You may feel hidden, but your legacy shines bright in their hearts. Look around. She gestured to the townsfolk who were busy setting up for the celebration. They are all here because of you. As he took in the scene, Calum noticed the children laughing, the elders sharing stories, and families coming together. He realized that his sacrifice had sparked a change, a bond that connected them all. I suppose I never thought of it that way, he admitted softly. Let's make this day a reminder, Lyra said, her eyes filled with determination. We'll celebrate not just your bravery, but the strength of our community. We will honor everyone who feels unseen and remind them that they matter. The two worked side by side, hanging colorful banners and arranging flowers around the fountain. As they decorated, Calum felt the weight of his sadness lift, replaced by a sense of purpose. You really believe this will make a difference? He asked, glancing at Lyra. Absolutely, she replied, her voice steady. When people feel connected, they can rise together. Your story is just the beginning. With that, Lyra stepped back to admire their work, her face beaming with pride. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, the townsfolk began to gather. They wore smiles and carried dishes of food, ready to share in the celebration. Lyra took Calum's hand, leading him to the center of the square. Are you ready? Calum took a deep breath, feeling the warmth of her hand in his. Ready as I'll ever be. The crowd silenced as Lyra stepped forward, her voice ringing clear. Friends, today we celebrate more than just survival. We celebrate the love, sacrifice, and connections that bind us. Calum has shown us that even in silence, our hearts can resonate with courage. A wave of applause erupted from the crowd, and Calum felt a rush of warmth. It was as if their cheers wrapped around him, lifting him from his shadows. He realized that, while he might always feel a part of him was missing, he was not alone. As the festivities continued, Calum watched Lyra interact with their neighbors, her laughter echoing through the square. He felt a sense of belonging he had long sought. He leaned closer to her and whispered, "Thank you for bringing me into the light." "Together, we will keep the light shining," Lyra replied, her eyes full of promise. And so, as the sun set over Eldoria, Calum understood that his legacy was not only about the sacrifices he made, but also about the connections he fostered. Love, he realized, could indeed transcend time, echoing through the hearts of those he had touched. Share this story if you believe that love can illuminate even the darkest paths. Leave a comment about a time when a small act of kindness made a big difference in your life, and subscribe for more inspiring tales like this one.